Thank you.
Right, good evening everyone and welcome to this meeting of South Oxfordshire District Council's Planning Committee. I'm Councillor David Brotherton and I'll be chairing this meeting. May I remind everyone that this is a meeting in public and not a public meeting. Only members of the public who have registered to speak are allowed to do so, and I will call on them to speak during the appropriate agenda item. The meeting is being held in our offices in Abbey House, Abingdon. Committee members are here in person. Officers and speakers are able to join remotely. The meeting is being streamed live on the Council's YouTube channel for public viewing. The system allows councillors who are unable to attend in person to contribute to the meeting, but only councillors who are present in the room are allowed to vote. For speakers and other members of the public who have logged on remotely, please ensure that your microphone is muted and that your camera is off for the duration of the meeting until you are called to speak. The Planning Committee is the decision-making committee of the Council. It is important that a set procedure is followed. All committee members have received a full report on each planning application, either on paper or electronically. For each application, we will then hear from the planning officer, followed by the parish or town council, and then objectors, supporters and local members. Each group will have 5 minutes to speak to the committee, after which members may ask questions of the speaker. The committee may then ask questions of clarification of the planning officer. It should be noted that committee members and officers may be using electronic devices for reference throughout the meeting. The committee will then debate and vote on the application. Councillors wishing to ask a question or participate in the debate are asked to indicate this by alerting myself or officers by raising a hand. Voting will be by show of hands. Members, please raise your hand clearly and keep it raised to allow a count to take place. If it is, however, unclear how members are voting through a show of hands, I'll ask the clerk to undertake a roll call of those present and how they are voting. Oh, excuse me. In the event of an emergency, please evacuate the building by the nearest exit, which is in the corridor immediate to the right of this meeting room, and to go to assembly point 9 in the outside area beyond the fire exit. The Democratic Services Officer present will assist you. Can anyone please ensure that their mobile phone is switched to silent or switched off during the meeting? Members of the public who wish to leave the meeting after their application has been heard are welcome to do so by the front door in reception. When the meeting is finished, I will ask for confirmation that the live stream has ended. At this point, please leave the meeting and make your way out of the building. Remember to sign out as you leave. So back to the agenda. And agenda item 2 is apologies for absence.
Yes, Chair, we have apologies from councillors Tim Bearder, Ali Gordon-Creed and Axel MacDonald.
Can I just confirm that we are going to be quorate for this meeting? We are quorate. Minutes of the previous meeting to adopt and sign as a correct record of the planning committee minutes of the meetings held on 11th of November and 11th of December 2024. You were here, absolutely. Rely on Peter.
Oh,
yeah.
Sorry. Chair, Tim Bearder brought up an issue about the.
Sorry,
Tim Bearder brought up an issue about the previous one, but this is both meeting minutes, isn't it? So
this is just the minutes for the meeting. Yeah,
not the previous meeting minutes. There was an issue about the one before that. But just clarifying, did you mention 2 meeting minutes here? Yes.
11th of December, 11th of November, and the 11th of December. Are the 2 meetings we're concerned with. Are they a correct record of the meeting? There might be some issues as a result of it, but was it a correct record of the meeting?
Yeah, we do it.
Yeah. Declaration of interest to receive declaration of disposal of pecuniary interests, other registered interests, and non-registered interests, or any conflict of interest in respect of items on the agenda for this meeting.
We need to vote to approve the minutes.
Sorry?
We need to vote to approve the minutes.
That's just what we do. Can we vote to approve the minutes? Thank you. It's a procedural, I suppose. Urgent participation, urgent business, sorry, to receive notification of any matters. Lucy's got it.
Sorry, I haven't got urgent business, thankfully. But under declaration of interest, I wondered if you would want to mention about item 4 and he's stepping down.
I can. It's not a declaration of interest, but the clerk just pointed out that item 4 and item 10, isn't it?
Sorry, yes,
Yeah, see the present in time. I actually called that into the committee for deliberation, and therefore I shall not be chairing that item on the agenda. I will still be at the meeting. I will present as local member, but I will not take part in the debate. Where are we now? Sorry, I'm not sure where we are.
Should I mention that I'm a Wallingford Town Councillor?
Sorry, Catherine.
One of the items is in relation to Wallingford. I am a town councillor.
No, that's
And
just,
Ward member.
unless
Is that
it's,
okay?
unless you've got a specific
No.
reason for that one. It's
Fine.
not just
All right.
general.
I'll check it
Yeah.
out.
No, that particular one I called it in. So yeah.
There we go.
Well, I'm a town councillor. Okay, where are we going? Agenda item 6, urgent business. There is no urgent business. Okay. Public participation. We will take the public participation during the each individual item, and therefore we'll move to the planning applications. So item 7 is Ivy Cottage, Dunsdon Green, Dunsdon, and the planning officer is Mark Pullen. I see his smiley face there. There he is.
Hello.
Right, over to you, Mark, for your presentation.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. This application is before you this evening as officer's recommendation to grant planning permission conflicts with the views of Iron Dunstan Parish Council that planning permission should be refused. A site visit to the site was conducted in October of last year and attended by councillors. This application was, however, deferred from that meeting in October in order to address land ownership matters, as well as the red line, as it did not quite correlate with land ownership of the neighbour. This application seeks planning permission to extend the 2 semi-detached properties to either side and to erect 2 new dwellings either side of the existing properties. As discussed before, the principal matters of concern raised by the parish and residents in respect of this application is the design and character of the proposed development, resulting in a design that would be out of keeping with the village. Other technical concerns have been raised with regard to highway safety, parking, loss of privacy, landscaping and drainage and flooding. It is your office's view that the proposed development has been designed and altered to respond positively to the character and design of the other nearby dwellings experienced locally to the site. The finishes and detailing of the principal facades have drawn from the local area whilst introducing a variation in style to the part of the village. It is important to note that this site does not belong to a conservation area or the national landscape. Your officers have had regard to the relevant policies within the development plan in this respect and are mindful of government guidance not to discourage appropriate means of innovation or change when it can be demonstrated that a development is sympathetic to the local character and environment. The plot sizes are proportionate to the local area. The dwellings maintain a spacious relationship, would not be disproportionately tall, would be finished in materials appropriate to the area and would follow a linear pattern along Dunstan Way. The proposed development would read comfortably within the village hall from the village green and would not be seen as a cramped form of development or overly domineering. In respect of all technical matters, these have been discussed in the report before you and they have not been met with any objections from the council's own specialist officers. Officers are satisfied, therefore, that the development would be acceptable and subject to the planning conditions before you would adhere to the development plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pullen. We'll come back to you with questions later on. Thank you. Okay, I have a number of speakers registered. Our first ones are objectors, just John Goldsmith and John Plumer.
Yes.
Yeah. Would you like to go to the table, please? As with all speakers to this committee, you have 5 minutes between you. I hope you've sorted that out between yourselves.
Yes, we have.
Yep, okay. And the 5 minutes will start as soon as you start speaking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good evening. As you probably remember, we did speak to you before on the previous version of this meeting. However, having carefully studied the committee report for this meeting, I note that many of the comments and objections raised formally and directly with the planning officer remain unacknowledged or responded to. I know some of them have been, but there are still a vast number that don't seem to have been even recognised. However, I note from the committee report there are three basic updates. One refers to conditions associated with ecology and drainage, and even though a holding objection has now been raised, my colleague will deal with that matter in detail. The boundary lines have indeed been sorted out. However, the stated view from the planning officer that the scheme is spacious, generous and sizable is one that we cannot agree with. To have houses of this size separated by less than 3 meters, it's not even sufficient to park a pram or run a pram up in between the properties, is not spacious, generous or sizable or appropriate. But really it's the third matter that I think is of most importance, and that is the fact that with the new MPPF December 24 and the use of tilted balance, which planning officer didn't seem to mention, but that's the main change to this report, is that this tilted balance is being used as the reason to support this application. The presumption in favour of development is well understood, as is the requirement for planning balance, to be carried out. I'll just ask, where is this planning balance? Where is the exercise which shows that there are more positives than there are negatives for this scheme? It can be argued that the local plan is out of date and that paragraph 11D, the tilted balance, is being used. Where is the evidence that the proposed scheme has any benefit over the consented scheme? The significant and demonstrable adverse impacts, the majority of which have not even been acknowledged, clearly outweigh the benefit of what is a total of 4 bedrooms. So the consented scheme, 4 3-bedroom houses, far more affordable and appropriate, really, for what this government and many before have tried to do. The benefit is 4 bedrooms, and for that we have to put up with all sorts of adverse impacts. None of these harms to the community or local area exist under the consented scheme, which also meets the national and local needs for more affordable 3-bedroom houses. No one is suggesting that infill and extension development should not take place in this site. In fact, it is supported. But on planning balance, the proposed development neither meets the needs of the area, paragraph 11A of the NPPF, nor the requirement for appropriate and sustainable development outlined in Local Plan 2035, which some might say is out of date now, or the JLP 2041, which I know it isn't fully acknowledged, but it is actually in place. There's a very similar situation in a neighbouring parish, and I wonder if councillors are aware of it. A consent for a pair of 3-bedroom semi-detached houses is being usurped by an application for a pair of 4-bedroom semi-detached houses over 3 floors in the middle of a rural village. Where is the planning balance? I don't believe it's appropriate that we should just take on every tilted balance argument to approve this kind of application. In summary, we support and endorse the consented scheme for reasonable, affordable homes designed to suit the local character, and strongly recommend that SODC rejects this current application.
Good evening. I've lived next door to Ivy Cottage for over 30 years and strongly object to this development. Too many red flags and inconsistencies on this development. Currently, standing water is visible on this land, the area prone to flooding with local housing that's been flooded. The housing groundwork with 3-metre footings will take up a significant size for this development. And where will the dispersed water, where will it go? SODC's drainage and flood engineer, Lee Travers, has emailed a holding objection on this application through to Mark Pull on the 8th of Jan. The developer's ground geologist and developer's drainage expert contradict each other, too many inconsistencies. And what's happening about this holding objection? How does that sit with the council? Plot 4 is sunk into the ground to reduce the height, increasing the dispersed flood water. Lee Travers also states under no circumstances can storm rainwater be dispersed into the main sewer. The drinking water aquifer is located under this building plot.
Your time is nearly up.
To allow the 100 square metre rule to apply to the gardens, the developer has put the planting and hedges on the wrong side of the boundary, as can be seen on the plan drawing. If corrected, they are approximately 70 square metres, well under the size that should be allowed. The bus stop is also incorrectly sized to allow sightlines to fit road access. A flood risk assessment should have been accompanied with the application, as footnote 50.
Sorry, that's your time. It's your 5 minutes.
Okay.
Sorry. Committee, are there any questions for the two?
Yeah,
Councillor Topping.
yeah. You refer to a previous consented scheme for affordable housing. I don't think I've seen that. Is that also for 4 houses?
Sorry, it wasn't for affordable housing. It was more affordable.
Oh,
housing.
more affordable. So
It's
smaller
basically-
houses.
It was 4 3-bedroom properties.
Okay. And when was the permission given?
18 months ago, I believe.
Right.
The 14th of July 2021, was that the one?
That's probably
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
That's maybe the
I'll warn
Yeah.
now about making comparisons between applications because
No,
there's so many variations and so many
Sure.
differences between applications.
But it's actually noted. It's noted in the report that
Yes. So that was given,
Yeah.
and people were happy with
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah.
And this is the developer now coming back for more
Well, they sold the land to a different developer.
to another developer.
Yeah, and he's
right,
come back
okay.
with this.
with this
Yeah.
larger scheme. Okay.
Yes.
And they've added basically an extra bedroom to each house and made them bigger.
Correct.
a
A lot
lot,
bigger. Yeah.
a lot more than that.
Right.
It's twice the built area.
Twice the square footage.
Right.
over.
514 to 1,044 square metres.
Right.
Okay, any further questions?
No.
No, we do have the agent to speak next, so it's probably more appropriately questions for him. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next speaker I have is Jonathan Jarman. Who's the agent for the development, I believe. Yeah, okay. So Jarman, you have your 5 minutes starting from when you start speaking.
Thank you. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak tonight. As with the last time this was heard at the committee, I'd first like to acknowledge the recommendation for approval by your officers to retain their position that the proposal is acceptable. As you've heard, following the previous meeting, due to queries regarding the boundary line with Ogwell Cottage, the site has been resurveyed, and it has been agreed with officers to amend the red line to avoid further uncertainty in this regard. There should be no disputes in regard to the position of the shared boundary line anymore. It is also important to stress that the application follows previous approval, as we've just heard, for the same number of units. An important difference is this proposal will retain the existing cottages with the design of the new builds being evolved around this. The result is a development that blends up the traditional with the contemporary elements to create homes that suit modern family living. Indeed, I would like to quote directly from the officer's report, in which they make clear the proposed front would draw appropriately from the character and appearance of local built form. Key design features and reference to local vernacular is seen within the design of the 4 dwellings, and the planned form accords with the linear pattern of Dunstan Green. The use of landscaping and appropriate materials would ensure that the development reads well within the settlement and enhances the rural context in which the site sits. We are, of course, aware that the previous speaker has concerns in relation to a few things in relation to heights, drainage, and other things. In relation to heights, the highest ridge does not exceed that of the retained cottages, and with the 2 new dwellings actually sitting below this height. The result is a step down in height, which, coupled with generous separation distances, in our view, will create a suitable relationship between neighbouring properties and the street scene. I'd add that the previous approval did not have the same step down. In relation to drainage, we're aware from photos which have been submitted by the neighbour that show local surface flooding. None of these actually show the site itself. And whilst questions have been raised in relation to drainage strategy, and we do note that there's been a holding objection, however, further information has been submitted to officers to deal with that holding objection, and we've been advised by the officer that things should be dealt with by condition, and not a reason to refuse the application. As for further consideration, the government has an objective of providing 1.5 million homes within this Parliament period, meaning additional sites for new homes need to be found. As stated by the officers, the council's housing land supply is less than 5 years old, meaning that it's more imperative that new planning applications like this are approved. Indeed, the organic growth of small villages can make a significant contribution to meeting housing needs without needing to build in less sustainable locations. I'd add to that, on the back of the last speaker, whilst the tilted balance, yes, does apply, it's not in itself necessary to make this scheme approvable. To conclude, a proposal will provide a modest scheme of well-designed modern housing into the environment it sits. This has been assessed by officers and found to be acceptable. We therefore ask the committee to endorse the officer recommendation and approve the application. Very much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jarman. Kirsty, has anybody got any questions for Councillor Catherine? Sorry.
It's Rowan. Yeah, you say that you think the separation is generous. The figure that we were quoted earlier doesn't sound very generous to me. What would it have to be? Have to go down to not be generous? I mean, you might as well make it terrace.
I dispute the analogy which was used before. You couldn't put a pushchair between that. And in my view, that's actually a distance of only 1 metre would be fine. And I think we're greater than that. Can give you the exact figure.
Any other questions?
I was going to ask
Councillor
about
Tuppy.
biodiversity net gain.
Yeah.
Does the scheme achieve that?
It wasn't possible to achieve it on site, so off-site credits have been secured to offset that impact. So we are complying with the original requirements.
Yeah.
Councillor Arlott, welcome.
Councillor Brotherton, how are you?
Oh, well, very well, Ken. Where are you? In sunny Oz or?
No, I'm in New Zealand at the moment, actually.
Okay.
It's a wee bit cloudy. Anyway, going back to the questions, the two items I'm picking up here are the drainage, and which obviously come up in the debate, and also the size and the bulk of these properties. Could I just go back? I could ask a question on the drainage, because there's a number of conditions on drainage in conditions 9, 10, 11 and 12. Can I just ask why the agent can't refer to those and tell us what details that they are going to put forward to alleviate the problems with drainage? Thank you.
I think the issue with that is, of course, it is a reserve condition and a reserve matter. He may well not have resolved exactly what those are yet, but I'll put that to the agent and see if he can answer the question.
Well, that, and also I'm not a technical expert in drainage, so I wouldn't be qualified to answer the question either. But that, as you say, it has been put forward by officers that such details can be conditioned.
We'll put that question to the officer and we'll come back to him, Ken.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you, David.
Okay. Any further questions of the agent? No. Okay, so thank you very much for your time, Mr. Jarman. We don't have ward councillors, and therefore I'll go back to Mr. Pullen, the council officer. I'm sure there are some questions for him. The first one is, can you just clarify what the situation is regarding the drainage and the...
Yes, certainly. So the matter surrounding drainage, basically since the previous committee that this was heard at, the applicant agent has endeavoured to try and meet the needs of the condition. So to provide all that information up front rather than rely on a condition. And then they submitted a drainage strategy to try to address the need for those conditions essentially. So if they were to submit details that are okay, then we wouldn't need to put those conditions on essentially. The drainage engineer has looked over that detail and at the moment is insufficient in terms of addressing everything that the drainage engineer would want to see. Which is why they have a holding objection to that. So it's not the case that you can't plan a suitable drainage scheme on this site. It's just the case that the first attempt that the agent has made to try and address, to provide an appropriate drainage scheme isn't acceptable. So we can still leave it to condition. At least now the applicant and agent are aware of what's missing from their drainage strategy or what they need to be doing instead of what they've said they would try to do. So in short, it can still be left to planning condition.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Committee, any further questions?
Can I just pick up on that, David?
Yes, you can, Ken.
The problem I have with this, you could well grant planning permission this evening, and then you have a condition that is almost unanswerable unless SODC are pointing in a direction of what they need to resolve the issue. Now, if you don't resolve the issue, there's no point in passing planning permission. Now, they've had since October, since we met the first time with this application, and I can't see how it's taken 3 months and they can't resolve the problem with the drainage. Now, if SODC know what the problem is, and maybe Mark can't answer that, if they do know what it is, why can't they resolve this issue? And there has to be a condition. Now, this is one of the things the objectors keep bringing forward, and I can well understand that. So surely they've had 3 months, Mark, to resolve this problem. Why can't they do that?
I mean, they didn't need to try and address the issue. They just thought it would help them to try and address it, as they have with, as I've mentioned in my report, the cycle, storage, etc., and use of external materials. They've tried to address it so that they don't have to deal with it later on. And in this instance, it's just the information is just not sufficient enough. So there's questions over modeling exactly. I'm not an expert and I'm not going to begin to tell you I'm an expert, but it's very technical issues that they require this, they require that to provide more certainty. So I don't know how long those things take. We certainly have many applications and many developments where we bounce back and say, actually, you've not provided enough drainage information here. Try again, and they do, and it's fine. I can't comment on the 3 month, how long it takes, etc. It's just the way it is. If our drainage engineer was very concerned that this site couldn't be developed on without at least demonstrating the X, Y, and Z, then they would have said, I want to see this up front now rather than leave it to condition. So, it can be assumed that they've left it to condition, so they are satisfied that an appropriate strategy can come forward on the site and that we can deal with that later on.
Okay, thank you, Mark. I think that's as far as we're going to go on that point. I appreciate your reason that point, Ken. Yeah.
Okay,
are there any other questions to be raised? I see none. I had some notes, but I think they've all been resolved and all been answered. Okay, so I will say thank you for the moment, Mark. So we'll move on. Okay. Okay, committee. We've had all the speakers. We've had comments from the officer. I'm looking for a motion, a proposal. Right, I'm required to propose take officer's recommendation for approval. So I'll propose that. I'm looking for a second then. Thank you, Councillor Topping. Do you wish to speak now? You can speak now or reserve your right to speak after the debate.
I've read everything, and my feeling is that on balance, I think the officers got the right recommendation here.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, I'll open the debate then. Is there any debate? Councillor Sadler.
Only that I'm pleased to see they resolved the boundary issue, because I think that was one of the biggest
The
issues.
boundary issue was resolved totally, yeah.
So I think from election that was that and splay visions. I seem to recall that was an issue, but it seems to be sort of covered in the report, and it's satisfactory. So I don't think there's any other material reasons why we should get to this stage.
No, okay, thank you. Councillor Dragon.
Yeah, I was going to object to these. So I think they're a bit of a rather sort of crass development, actually. I'm surprised that it's not in the national landscape, which is correct. So I thought this area would deserve to be. And I'm sorry to see the loss of these, what are very attractive little agricultural workers' cottages in this quite pleasing and modest settlement. But I think it's obviously clear we need executive homes for the trusting young executives who are going to grow our British economy. And I was actually pleased to see the materials of this development are the brickwork appears to be matching the existing cottages, and the roof tiles are going to be handmade. So, and apart from the, and to my view, unnecessary and extensive glass areas, they're not as bad as some other properties I've seen come forward. So I didn't propose a motion to refuse them.
Sorry, I missed that last bit.
That's why I didn't propose a motion to refuse.
You didn't. Okay, all right, okay. Is there anybody else wishes to speak? Ken, do you wish to say something?
Just briefly, David, as I say, just going back to the drainage, to be honest, in my opinion, I don't think these applications should come to committee until those have been resolved, because you could well have an issue in the future that they may not resolve the drainage. So what's the point of granting planning permission? So I think the officers should look more deeply at that in the future. I think the other item I would just mention is the obviously the size and the bulk of these properties compared to its neighbour. And that was one of the items we picked up on the last meeting in October, when we looked at the front elevation to the neighbour on the right hand side. So that would be my only problem with the application, or those two items. All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Arlott. Right, we've got a proposal. Proposal seconded. We've all spoken on this one. All those in favour of the proposal, please show. 2, 3, 4. All those against? Nobody against. So that is carried. So thank you very much, Committee.
Just abstaining.
You just abstained. Okay, 1 abstention. Okay, so thank you very much on that application. Right. For the purposes of the broadcast, I will welcome Councillor Rob. With a familiar face for us.
I apologise for being late. As I was leaving the house, my dog ran out of the gate and it took me ages to get in back. So apologies for that.
And I welcome Councillor Mohammed.
Yeah, apologies. I was in London, so there was a lot of traffic. Going back to London after this.
Yeah, and I was remiss earlier on in welcoming Councillor Topping to his first meeting. So welcome, Councillor Topping. All right. Okay, I can now move on to the second item, which is land at 6068 Broadway, Didcot. Oh, excuse me. And welcome Andy Aaron. Andy Aaron, the planning officer. Can you take us through this, Andy, please?
Yep, thank you, Chair. The officer recommendation is for approval. subject to the conditions listed in Appendix 3. And the application is referred to committee following an objection from Didcot Town Council, who have raised concerns with proposed vehicle access, the loss of car parking spaces, and the poor design and quality of the development. The site is situated to the north of Broadway. The Orchard Centre is situated to the northwest, with an industrial area to the east. Didcot Conservation Area and residential properties located to the south. On-road parking bays are situated either side of the vehicle access. And planning permission is sought for the change of use from a vacant site to a hand-operated car wash, with the erection of a temporary timber frame office and car wash canopies to the north. The development will reflect the applicant's other car wash business sited at the Mulberry Public House on the junction of Park Road and further up Broadway. The application follows on from a previous application which was refused by delegated powers. This was due to highway safety concerns associated with the car sales area to the west of the site. Now that permission for car sales is no longer sought, the County Council Highways officers have confirmed that they removed their initial objection, subject to condition requiring the new access to be constructed prior to all the development works taking place. To improve access, 9 on-road car parking spaces will be removed, and this is to assist visibility for vehicles exiting the site. The County Council have confirmed that there is sufficient car parking capacity with the area to accommodate the loss in car parking spaces, which will be replaced by double yellow lines. To prevent car sales operating to the western area of the site, an additional condition will be recommended to control this from. So it's not actually listed on your report pack, but officers feel it'll be worthy to just enforce for the future. Finally, I would like to confirm that no objections had been received from specialist officers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Andy. Oh, I have one speaker from this, which is David Smith. Yeah. Who's the transport planning officer by the operator, I guess. Yeah. Okay, Mr. Smith, you have 5 minutes from the moment you start speaking.
Thank you, Chair. I'm the transport consultant that's been appointed on behalf of the applicant for this planning application. The site was subject to a planning application in 2023 for a hand-operated car wash, as you have heard. This application was refused, with the single reason for refusal being due to insufficient access information being provided. This planning application is supported by a transport statement which outlines the proposed access arrangements and assesses the forecast impact on the local highway network. It is also important to note the local highway authority have confirmed that they have no objections to this new application, subject to a condition around the timing of the delivery of the access. It is proposed to relocate and widen the existing vehicular access serving the site to allow for 2 vehicles to pass, but whilst minimising the loss of the on-street parking spaces on Broadway. The loss of the 9 on-street car parking spaces is so visibility displays that accord with the 85th percentile speeds on Broadway are achievable to the east and west of the site access. To assess the loss of these parking spaces, a commercial and residential parking survey have been undertaken in line with the Lambeth methodology. The commercial parking survey assessed the parking demand across the day relating to demand for local businesses in the area. The residential parking survey was undertaken overnight when resident parking demand is at its highest. The commercial parking survey results demonstrate that at peak parking demand, there were 82 parking spaces available across the survey extent. Notwithstanding this, of the 25 on-street parking on Broadway within the vicinity of the site, there were 10 observed spaces within this area at peak parking demand. Therefore, the loss of 9 on-street parking spaces could be accommodated solely within this area without displacing any of the existing parking demand. The overnight residential parking survey results indicate that a limited number of vehicles park overnight within the on-street bays on Broadway within the vicinity of the site, with a maximum of 5 vehicles recorded on either survey day. With 25 on-street parking spaces available within this area, this demonstrates there is sufficient capacity to accommodate the loss of the 9 on-street spaces. There's been a few comments online around congestion on Broadway as well, made by local residents. And the loss of these parking spaces will enable a better traffic flow along Broadway through providing more opportunity for 2 large vehicles to pass each other. The proposed car wash is not forecast to attract new trips to the area, as customers are unlikely to make a dedicated trip to the site. Instead, these are likely to be passed by or linked trips, with drivers already either passing the site on Broadway or visiting other local uses in the area, such as nearby retail stores. The proposed parking provision on site has been designed to ensure that all vehicles associated with the site can be accommodated within the site boundary, and that there will be no parking, overspill or queuing back onto the local highway network. I trust this summary of the work completed and the local highway authority's position on transport matters will assist you in your deliberations. I hope you will support the officer's recommendation and grant planning consent for this development.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Smith. Committee, have you got any questions for the Councillor Topping?
Yeah, I know this site very well. I live in East Hagbourne. I regularly park outside this site, alongside it. I'm surprised that when your survey was carried out that there were 10 available spaces at that moment in time. I mean, I'm not saying that there won't be moments when that happens, but I think they'd be very unusual. And even if it were the case that 10 were available on a regular basis, losing 9 gives, a margin of 1 space, which strikes me as rather tight.
So that breaking to the 10 spaces is just purely that sort of extent of on-street parking spaces directly outside the site effectively. So that's from effectively the zebra crossing across to the other side of the Travis Perkins site. We've surveyed a 500-metre extent in line with the Lambeth methodology, which showed that there was a significant amount of spare capacity. So it's not just it goes beyond just those parking spaces in front of the site effectively.
Councillor Keats-Rowland.
Yes, I'm sorry if I've missed something somewhere, but I'm a bit confused about the temporary nature of this, the temporary buildings. How long is this site meant to be operational?
I think we'll go back to the planning officer with that one.
Right, fine,
yeah.
Yes.
Councillor Sandler, did you have a question?
Yeah, so could you just clarify the parking space thing? Because you've touched on that, and I think you covered it, but I just want to, just for clarity, so you're saying that 9, did you say 9 spaces will be going as a result of this? So, because you've got double yellow lines on the other side, so it's effectively the entire frontage of the site, is it?
There's just 8 spaces to the east when you're coming out the site and 1 to the west.
Okay. Great. Yes, thank you. It was just clarification.
Okay. Are there any further questions? Councillor Robb.
Thank you, Chair. Just to clarify the methodology, so you went within a 500-metre, what's that, radius, or a 500-metre linear?
Linear.
Okay.
So along
the Broadway itself.
Along Broadway and other roads.
Okay. And then in that 500-metre linear area, there were at peak times, that is to say when the car wash will be operating, 85 spare spaces.
82.
82 spare spaces. Yeah. Okay. And is there disabled parking anywhere in that area? I'm just thinking in terms of people with disabilities who might, none of the spaces that have been removed are disabled spaces, are there?
Correct. No.
Okay, fine, thank you. Well, one final thing, Chair. OCC Highways non-objection, was that based upon your commissioned report?
Yeah, they reviewed our report.
Okay. Thanks.
There are additional disabled spaces outside the old post office, which is about 200 metres away from this site. And also further up outside the W.H. Smith, there's probably a total of about 8 or 10 within about 500 metres of the site.
Crispin, we're in questions for the speaker.
Yeah.
All right. Committee, you got no further questions? Thank you very much, Mr. Smith. Thank you for our presentation. I've lost myself. As we have no Didcot town, Didcot councillors here or on the call. Okay, we can go back to Mr. Heron for any questions for him. And there was one that came up, but I'm sure you can answer that one.
Yeah. Do you want me to? I know the question you're referring to, Chair, so you're happy for me, I'll answer it. So in terms of the temporary buildings, the reason for the condition and the referral to them being temporary is highlighted in the report. We received objections from neighbours and the town council for that matter, as to the impact of what they feel is poor design structures. I must admit that the structures that are proposed are a shed and marquee structure, which are generally seen as temporary buildings. So just to protect the site and make sure that they are indeed temporary, we officers felt it was necessary to attach a condition for their removal, which has been agreed with the developer to remove after 3 years of the business operating.
Does that mean that the use of the site has to also stop after 3 years?
No, the use is permanent.
It's permanent.
Yeah.
But I mean, my view of this development was that it was rather disappointing that effectively a high street site would have a second car wash operation. Obviously, we would have hoped in the future that this might have attracted a ground floor retail, possibly with residential sitting above it, which would be a higher value and better quality use of the site. But maybe that can happen in the future when it's combined with other.
That's where we get into debate. Councillor Sadler.
Andy, I think you covered it, but I just again I want to clarify that the slowest members of the class. So future car sales area, that plot there, that's the bit that you're going to add the condition that they can't. Is that what you meant?
That's right.
Condition.
Yeah. So as
can we have the wording of that condition?
Yeah. Bear with me one moment. I have written it down.
There was concern that a future car sales area is a bit sort of fully open. Yeah. They need to pin it down and say it's not a future car sales area. It's a. If they would change it and introduce that, then they'll have to come back with another application. Just to clarify that it is not. It's the words are there, but they don't actually mean anything. So Andy's got some words to actually.
Yeah. So the exact wording that I quoted for your reference will be the site should be used as a hand car wash use only. No car sales shall operate on the site. The reason being, in the interest of highway safety, in accordance with policy trans 5 of the South Oxfordshire local plan.
Okay, thank you, Andy. So it's a car wash only. No car, and specifically says no car sales that take place from the site.
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay.
And just to follow up on that, so that means that part of the site, which remain looking like it is, effectively fenced off and secured and.
Indeed, yes. The applicants, if they intended to use it for anything other than the hand car wash site, would need to apply for planning permission.
Okay, Councillor Charlotte.
I've just wanting clarification on would they be able to expand the car wash into it, or is that sort of ring fence?
Yeah, so the car wash itself is for the red line area. So they would be able to use it for the expansion of the hand car wash if they did consider that something they wanted to do.
If it's successful, I suppose that's it. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Andy. I think no further questions. Right, I need a proposal so we can go into debate and then we can discuss other issues. Councillor Dragonetti.
I propose officers' recommendation and approve this.
Yeah, okay. I'll second that. Seconded. Thank you, Ed. Okay, well, open for debate. What I appreciate what Councillor Topping was saying earlier on, but we can't speculate about other uses, so we must actually just consider what's in front of us. Yeah, I appreciate, yes, you'd rather have something else, but you can only consider what's here in front of us now at this moment in time. Yeah. Okay, so in open the debate, is there any debate?
I suppose it's better than having an empty site. Just. That's my attitude, to be honest. It's very disappointing that is the best, seemingly, that we have on offer. But it's, as you say, it's what we have before us. And is it better to have it than to not have it, and for the site to remain empty? I just hope that in the future something better comes along, possibly combined with adjoining sites, that is a more appropriate, higher value use for this.
I think I couldn't disagree with that.
Yeah,
but it's not what before us. So,
no,
and it's more. So again, we at this committee actually are here to apply policy, not create policy. And we can't change the policies. We must just apply the policies that we have. And as I've had it proposed and seconded, I can speak now. This actually doesn't go against any policies. Right. We've covered all the issues, all the questions. Excellent report, but it's quite short, which is quite a short application. So yeah, okay, all right. Is there any further debate? I'll go to the seconder to speak.
Okay. I agree. It's not ideal, but it is a fairly busy road. It is a vacant plot. It's next to other industrial use buildings. I can think of some areas I'd rather it didn't go over that. So on balance, I think they thought it through, and but on balance, I think with the kind of street scene that you've got there, if there's going to be a car wash anywhere, I think it's not a bad place for it. And I think getting rid of those 9 free spaces would seem to make sense. I really wish highways would do that a bit more often, to be honest. There's a lot of street parking, and it is a bit pointless, frankly.
Does slow the traffic down?
Yeah, but not for the right reasons. I think you get a lot of bottlenecks, and it's also not great for highway safety for pedestrians and so forth. So I think on balance, I think it's it's kind of good to go.
It's what it is.
It's what it is. Yeah.
All right, thank you. I'll now go to the proposal to.
Yeah, well, this is a piece of land that's obviously semi-derelict, really, at the moment, and car wash is going to be there just for a few years before some more attractive commercial development comes forward as part of the enhancement of Didcot as a major commercial centre in South Oxfordshire. So there's no reason for us to object.
Okay. I've had a proposal, so a proposal seconded. We all spoke about it. All those in favour, please show. It's unanimous, so thank you very much. Okay, thank you, Andy.
Thank you.
You finished now. Okay. Oh, just going to get some more water.
You all right, David?
Yeah, I've got a bit of a cold.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I put it on my knees.
Go for it. Yeah, because
Just hope in the future some of those grim. New retail ideas. Use some of those huge numbers of at home. Just see the form, which is fine.
Let you choose down.
Doing well. It was a short session with breathing. It was referencing quite a lot to it. So now I think it's some security there. But it's not just that the
Try to get it on the screen.
We're nearly there with the presentation, so it should be appearing shortly.
Why is it not working?
Is it on yours? The computer.
Is it possible that Tom could display it?
It's good.
Yes.
It's listing.
Can Tom hear us?
Yes, yeah. So, Tom, we'd be very grateful if you could see if you can display the presentation for this one.
Hello, yes, I'm just getting it up now.
Oh, thanks very much.
Okay.
So you're getting more from it.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
You should find those.
This is yours.
Can you just wait until Zia comes back?
Chair, I think he's left.
So I think
he's left.
you think he's left? I thought he got to get some water. No.
I think he's left.
But he's doing it.
Okay.
Tom was put on.
All right. Sorry. Carry on.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. The application before you is recommended for approval, subject to conditions in Appendix 2. The proposal, as you can see on the screen, is described as a erection of 2 15-metre high flood lighting columns and installation of 8 floodlight luminaires, 2 fitted to the new columns and 2 fitted to each of the existing 2 lighting columns. Just in summary, the 2 new lighting columns will be 50-metre tall, galvanized metal, wide at the base, narrow, and identical to the ones on site. Floodlight luminaires will include louvers and offset at 35 degrees facing downwards onto the rugby pitch. The 2 floodlights on each of the new existing columns, as I mentioned, in total of 8. Proposed hours of operations between 1800 hours and 2100 hours on weekday evenings and between mid-October through to late March. Yeah,
the site is located, as you can see, west of Wallingford district. And in terms of the red boundary, it's just showing the particular rugby pitch itself. The surrounding area includes to the north, I should say to the west, Calvin Thomas Way, and the allotments to the east, and to the north of the site, a Highcroft housing estate further across the boundary. The site itself is not in any designated area, particularly protected by any interest, and that gives you a closer view of the rugby pitch itself. The one to the south of it immediately is the one with the existing lighting, which you'll see in the photograph shortly. And there are smaller unlit pitches, rugby pitches to the north as well. And that's the pitch itself. You can see the lighting columns, lighting displays in blue facing towards the centre point of the rugby pitch itself. Two to the north, the new ones, and the existing ones to the south. Just an illustration of, on the left is the existing lighting column with the two additions on the right, the proposed two new 50-metre lighting columns, identical in design and detail. That gives a sort of aerial perspective view of the site and the other areas that are got other pitches, and just gives you context. You see the allotments very clearly on the right, and you can see, well, open land to the north where the housing estate is currently in construction or almost fully constructed, well, from having done the visit and seen the site. Yeah, closer view again of the pitch itself. You can see the site is bounded, and you'll see a lot of the photographs with mature trees and planting and hedges, and it includes the existing lighting facilities on the site at the moment. That gives you contours of the lighting sort of spillage from the immediate lighting, and it's very helpful. It gives the context of that particular setting in relation to the surroundings. And the next slide, this illustrates where the lighting is immediately. It's sort of indices of about 100 with immediate pitches, and as it permeates further out to the edges, it goes down to less than 1% or 0.5% even. And that, I think, was helpful to the agent, helped providing a cumulative contours of the whole of the site. Over since 1970s, the site's got at various intervals flow-back facilities, and it just gives you the relationship. Still highlight the fact there are two smaller pitches to the north that do not have facilities. And that gives the context of the site in terms of the existing lighting columns and the pitch immediately to the north, but doesn't have any. There's another perspective view coming around. And that gives the allotments to the right hand side immediately. You can just about see the housing estate to the north there through the gap. There are probably right of ways walking through the site currently. And in summary, I think the consultations were carried out, site notices were put up. There was concern that it didn't include the consultations comprehensively, so site notices were placed up. And representations were received from Wallingford Town Council with recommendation of timing restrictions on the lighting, and also 3 objections and 65 letters and emails of support from users of the sports centre and also local residents. So recommended approval subject conditions. The ones mentioned are agreeable to the 1800 hours, 2100 hours as mentioned, and also as there's the interest of archaeology on the site, that the condition was placed for the developer to take regard to the conditions and issues.
Okay, thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Okay, right. I have a number of supporters wishing to speak on this one, which are Matt Bevis, Andy Collins, and Richard Payne. They're all virtual, I think.
Yeah, hello, I'm Matt. Hold on, let me just turn my camera on.
Okay. Are all three of you wishing to speak? Because we have 5 minutes between you.
Yeah, no, it'll probably be I'll do sort of the major part of the speaking, and Andy's here basically for the any techie stuff that you've got any questions for on the lights.
Okay, you have 5 minutes starting when you start speaking.
Okay, so I'm here to represent the Wallingford Rugby Club and support the proposal for the additional floodlighting on the Jubilee pitches, as you saw on the various diagrams at the Sports Trust in Wallingford. I've been involved with the rugby club for approximately 15 years, firstly taking my son down to training and supporting from the sidelines. From this, I progressed to assisting coaching from my son's group, then joined the Minis and Juniors Committee as chairman for a considerable number of years. I'm now on the senior committee and I look after the facilities, hence why I'm here. The main reason for the additional floodlighting proposal is to satisfy our commitment to provide enough training areas for our ever increasing numbers of the club. So we have the following currently at the club: a massive minis and juniors section of around about 350 to 400 active members. That ranges from under 16s to under 6s up to 16, so that's 11 age groups. We've got an under 18s Colts side. We've also got a Wallingford touch rugby side. We've got Wallingford Wolves, that's special needs tag rugby. We've got Wallingford women. We've got the seniors first team, and we've got the seniors second team, and we also have a vets team. So quite a considerable amount of players over the week and the weekends. As a club, we support local schools in the area by providing pitches and refs for various tournaments throughout the year that they organise. We also support local events such as the firework display, the carnival procession, by providing members to help with the marshalling, bucket collecting of obviously cash. Also, as a club, we run various tournaments throughout the year, including Oxfordshire county tournaments. That's mainly through the minis and juniors. And we've run these pretty much every year since I've been at the club. Also, we run a JB Sevens charity tag tournament in around about the April time. And we think as a club, we provide a vital community cog for Wallingford and the surrounding area. So as you can imagine, with the amount of people we've got, club members, the current floodlit pitches we have are extremely stretched for usage, and basically the additional floodlights will increase the area that we've got to dispose for various training sessions. It is a slightly smaller area that needs lighting, and it's as discussed, it was directly adjacent to the existing floodlit area, and the new light technology, which obviously Andy's on site online to talk you through if you need to, is a lot better than sort of the existing dated lights that we use, so pretty much less light spillage. So also we've got to bear in mind that the rugby season runs roughly from September to April. There's no evening training on a Saturday or Sunday, and the floodlit training areas will only be really used in the winter months and never late into the night. 9 o'clock is sort of the absolute maximum. So hopefully that should have satisfied all your points. And if you've got any questions, especially tech questions, which unfortunately I won't be able to answer, please feel free to ask away. Richard, if you want to add anything at all.
Yes, if I may just add just a quick bit. I'm currently the chairman of the club. I've been a member of the club for somewhere near 50 years. I started playing senior rugby when I was 18. That's almost 40 years ago. I just want to say that rugby's changed massively in Wallingford. When I first started, we had one badly lit pitch and we had one senior team that trained once or possibly twice a week. As time's gone on, more and more people want to train, and what we're seeing now is it's the younger age group, so probably the under 10s up to the under 16s. They want to train in the evenings, and we're trying to just facilitate that for two reasons. One, we don't want to go and lose them to another club, and two, we don't really want to lose them to another sport. So if we can keep them occupied at Wallingford, then I think we're looking after the future of our club, but we're also supplying a good service for all of the local children who do want to come down and play rugby in the evening. That's probably all I need to say. If Andy's got anything.
I think really just to reiterate what the guys have said, that this is a carefully looked at application. The lighting only serves to the RFU guidelines, so it's not over the top. There's not more luminaires used than what's necessary.
and it takes in consideration the local residents, the new housing estates, and it's completely ILP compliant. So, you know, from that point of view, it's a well considered design application.
Okay, thank you, James. Committee, have we got any questions for Councillor Rob?
It's not really a question, it's just a comment. Thank you very much for everything you do for the town and for your sport. You're clearly phenomenal servants to your sport and to the town of Wallingford. And also, I just wanted to say that the submission that you've given us is so clear that even I can understand it, and I don't understand lighting. And so I appreciate that as well. Thank you very much.
Okay. Councillor Sadler.
Yeah, it's a question for Andy Collins, I think, because there's been one or two objections. Well, we know there's been 3 objections, but there's one about lighting in neighbouring areas. Can you just explain that lighting spillage piece around that?
Of course, yeah. So what you saw there with the rings that go around the pitches, they're ISO contour lines. So they start at 25 lux, closest to the light source. Then you get 10 lux, 5 lux, and 1 lux. So anything beyond those rings that you could see is basically 0. So by the time you get anywhere near the proposed developments, the new housing estates, there is 0 lux there. So it shouldn't cause any issues, any glare for observers, any residents in the areas. And it's quite a low level of lighting that's proposed as well. To put it in context, it's 100 lux on the rugby pitch. The football pitch that you saw detailed on the drawings earlier on, that's got 200 lux, and the tennis has got 400 to 500 lux. So it's arguably closer to the residential buildings, but it is the lowest level that the RFU state can be used for safe competitive play and training.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and just those lux levels that you're talking about, that's just a measure of the amount of light that it
Indeed,
gets.
It's where that point ends, if you like. Your 25 ends there, your 10 lux ends there, your 5 lux ends there, and then it ends with your 1 lux, which, to put it in context, moonlight's half a lux. Yeah, but in full moonlight, you're talking about half a lux. So, once you get down to 25 to 30 meters beyond the playing field, you really are going to be in darkness.
Thank you. Okay, any further questions? That's the topic.
Just bats. Was there a bat survey done as part of the application?
Yeah, that's a question.
Yeah, the ecology officer looked at that and assessed that the surrounding hedgerow and trees wasn't a good source or a route for passage for bats or birds. However, to protect nighttime and late evening use and overnight, restricted timing would protect that.
Yes,
good use.
Yeah, and this would be, they'd be shutting the lights off at 9 o'clock in the evening anyway, so that would sort of coincide with when the bats.
Okay, sorry, yeah. Thank you, chaps. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Those are any more further questions?
Can I just comment as a ward councillor? I know these people. They are very environmentally and ecologically conscious. They do a lot to ensure that this really ticks all boxes. They really are a great big body.
All right. Well, you've had one question back to the planning officer. But any further questions to the planning officer? Councillor Sadler.
Yeah, so it's on that. So it's on the hours of operation. I think it's mentioned there in the recommendation, and then it's mentioned as 18 to 2100. So I think that's fine. But I mean, is that going to just be a condition that puts onto the application?
Correct.
Yeah,
that's right. And I think the others that I looked at just as information on the site as a whole didn't have restrictions of timing. I think the sensitivity with the housing came to place for the north, I think this alleviates that concern, and it's an active thing that the agent provided. And I think just on the other point, if I may, on the representations in terms of intrusion and lighting, we did take a back twice to our environmental team to assess the impact, and there was no objection coming back from that in terms of harm.
Okay, so you say it has been the environmental team on.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, satisfied that there's no harm. Okay. All right. I see no further questions, so we'll move on to a motion, please. Councillor Rob.
I propose opposite recommendation.
Okay, is that seconded?
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Sadler. Is there any debate? Well, is there any debate? I go back to Councillor Sadler to sum up. Or to make your seconders.
Yeah, it looks like they've gone through this quite well. 65 people in support, which is very impressive, isn't it? And then obviously the list of concerns that were raised over light spillage into neighbouring roads, particularly. We got the hours of operation as well to to fall back on with that 18 to 2100. It's not unreasonable. I think overall they've addressed the concerns, and it looks like there's not really, well, we can't hear many objections to it. So I think there was a thing about night skies as well. I read it in one of the objections about night skies, but I don't think that's really applicable in this location. The Greens are kind of really on this, aren't you, Joe? But that's more about villages, and I think Wallingford would not be one of those dark skies locations as far as I'm aware.
No dark sky. Yeah.
Let's read the Newborn plan.
You do your best. Yeah.
Right. Sorry, and go back to Councillor Rob to sum up.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I mean, I actually brought a motion to council in support of dark skies. And this is precisely how we see our support of dark skies. When we have design that mitigates light spill, we have conditions that limit the hours of operation for the nighttime lighting to protect our dark skies. We've got a very detailed report from the applicants which shows exactly where the light spill will be happening. We have no objection from the biodiversity, or beg your pardon, from the ecology officer, subject to a timing condition which is in place. We have no objection from environmental health, so that is to say no impact on residential amenity. And on the upside, we've got a rugby club with 350 plus members, including women, who are going to be able to train into the night in the winter months. So it's a big yes from me, and thank you to the gentlemen and ladies from Wallingford Rugby Club for their efforts.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we've had a proposal. Proposal seconded, we've debated it. All those in favour, please show. Thank you. Thank you very much, committee. Thank you, gentlemen, for your presentations. I'll go and move away. Agenda item 10. Yeah. So it's this speakers list hasn't got the agenda items on, so that's what we're going by.
Well, thank you, David.
I'm
honoured to step into your shoes for this item, last item on our agenda. The demolition of existing bungalow and the replacement of a new self-built dwelling. And Mark is going to tell us all about it.
Thank you, Chair. This application is before you this evening, as mentioned before, at the request of Councillor Bretherton, who called the application in. This application seeks planning permission to replace the existing property with a new, larger property. The principal matters of concern raised by locals relate to the character and appearance of the proposal and the impact on neighbours. Other technical concerns have been raised with regards to highway safety, parking, landscape and drainage and flooding. It is your office's view that the proposed development has been designed to retain the appearance of a modest property. The property lies adjacent to two-storey properties, and the proposed development would provide a natural transition between the bungalows along Cedar Crescent and the nearby two-storey properties, whilst retaining a bungalow property appearance. There are nearby examples of other bungalows which have been altered and extended, which demonstrate an acceptance by this council of variations in design and form within the same estate. Concerns have been raised about the impact on the amenity of neighbours. This has been addressed within the report before you, but it is worth noting that an additional planning condition could be imposed tonight to require the roof light closest to neighbouring property 24 to be obscure glazed if the committee sees fit. Your officers have had regard to the relevant policies within the development plan in this respect, and are mindful that the government guidances don't wish to discourage appropriate ways of being innovative and change, so long as the design is sympathetic to the overall character of the area and the environment. In respect of all technical matters of concern, these have been addressed in the report before you and have not been met with any objections from the council's own specialist officers. Officers are satisfied, therefore, that development is acceptable and that, subject to the planning conditions and potentially the additional condition to obscure glaze the roof light, the proposal would adhere to the development plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, when I go to, we have two public speakers. First of all, David Wright, who's a neighbour. Then later on, we'll have the agent. So David, let's take a seat, and when you start speaking, you'll have 5 minutes. Thank you.
David Wright. I live next door to the proposed property. We live at number 24. And by way of background information, my wife and I met the applicant and her family last summer when they were considering the purchase of number 22, which is the 2-bedroom bungalow next to ours. We've always known that the applicant would make changes to the property, which is an original bungalow built in the 1960s. And we were pleased to show her what could be achieved when they looked at our home. So we've already met them and looked to assisting them there. And when details of the planning application became available, we looked at them in great detail and concluded that we should raise an objection for a number of reasons. These were detailed in our online objection. Now, there were 11 objections which were recorded online as set out in section 2 of the officer's report. These are summarised as follows. 9 out of the 11 referred to a loss of bungalows on the estate. 8 out of the 11 referred to a loss of privacy. 7 referred to the proposed house being too high. And 6, that it was an overdevelopment of the site. There were a number of other issues as well, but those are the principal ones, objections. Eventually, we received minutes of the Tame Town Council Planning Committee of 10th of December and were surprised that although the council's contact officer's recommendation was for a rejection, the application was actually approved. And on following this up with the council, we were advised that there's no record of why this proposal was approved. For some reason, the contact report did not refer, amongst other things, to the potential loss of privacy. Following this revelation, we decided to await the planning officer's report and recommendation to this committee. The report was attached to the notice of the meeting dated 20th of January. And on reading the officer's report, the recommendation is that the Planning Commission should be granted. But there's little recognition of the impact of the development on the neighbourhood, and particularly the clearly obvious loss of privacy. The cross-section, which was included in clause 6.15 of the officer's report, section P1, didn't actually show the detail as it was shown on cross-section P2, which with the result that the issue of loss of privacy was not addressed. We then sought professional advice from a local architect to see whether we could put forward a proposition to improve the position for us without affecting the overall design that was submitted. And the additional PL 310 submitted on behalf of the applicant on the 10th of January, which showed 2 cross-sections across the roof lights, further indicated that the roof light proposed on the rear south-east facing roof was, as indicated on all the previous drawings, a full-height fire escape roof light, as we had suspected from the outset. In conjunction with this architect, we put together an alternative compliant layout for the proposed bedroom 3, which in effect mirrored the layout of bedroom 4. And we thought that this would remove the need for the escape roof light completely. This proposal was captured with an annotated drawing and a photograph in my letter to the planning officer last Friday, with a copy to Mr. Bretherton and to Mr. Dragonetti for their information, and with a request that this be considered by him and the applicant prior to today's meeting, as we considered that this would be an acceptable compromise. We also asked that copies of this letter be provided to each of you prior to the meeting. And this week we've had a discussion by email with one of the applicant's sons regarding this. I think we've reached an agreement in principle, but this will involve the submission of further detail for the planning officer's approval. And I've received a further email this afternoon from Michael Ash, but have not really studied the contents fully, I'm afraid. Whilst we'd prefer to see a single-storey home
30 seconds
built,
left.
sorry?
We've got 30 seconds left.
While we'd prefer to see a single-storey home built to replace this bungalow, the precedents have already been set. However, none of the 4 referred to have full-height roof windows facing their neighbours. To permit this will naturally create an additional precedent. In our view, the design submitted is contrary to policy DES 6 regarding an adverse impact on the neighbouring users. And we request that when considering this proposal and the representations of the 11 objectors, the planning committee recognises this adverse impact on the neighbourhood, and we should like to see the committee defer the decision pending submission of the proposed revised details. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. Do we have any questions for Mr. Wright?
Probably you're worried about privacy, and I understand that. Is the main issue that you have with regard to privacy to do with the roof light? There seem to be 3 Velux style.
There's a 4th one.
But on the side that's opposite your
Exactly,
property,
so.
on the eastern elevation, I'm counting. I'm only counting 3. But I thought those were solar panels at the front of the building, and then there's 3. There appear to be 3. These would be quite high up, though, wouldn't they?
Correct.
You wouldn't easily be able to look out of them over your property unless you were standing on a chair or very tall.
The 3 that you're referring to are at high level with a sill height or glass height of 1.7 metres, I think.
So
the one that's concerning us is on the south-east elevation, which is on the corner nearest to our property.
Yeah.
And that is a full height roof light, which goes down to, I think, 600 above the floor.
I don't see that.
I'm not seeing this.
It's plans.
Yeah.
If I might interrupt.
That's on the other
we
side.
could
That's
ask
on
the
the west
case officer or Tom White to display that plan.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about bedroom 3.
I'll
And
do
there
it.
are 3. Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah. I can see them going down to the ground on the western elevation, but that's away from your property. And then there's a road, and then you've got the 2-storey properties on the other side. But on the east, I'm not seeing windows going down to the ground.
On the section on the bottom left, there's that roof light runs right down to within 600 of the floor. Would you like me to get up and point it out?
Yes, please.
I don't know if you can see my cursor, but I am trying to.
I can't see your
cursor.
That's the high level roof light that you can see, which is these ones here, there, and there. And this one, which is adjacent to our property, is this one here.
Yes.
Which goes right down to the floor and is at the same virtually.
So that is in the first floor of the middle section of the building. Right, okay. And is that the one that there was a suggestion that it could be made opaque? Right, okay,
Yes.
that makes sense to me.
My concern with that, if it's a condition, is that in future that could be reglazed with clear glass. I'd rather see that there was a plan put forward that was part of the application, which would then be cast in stone, so to speak.
Mr. Wright, if it was a peak glazing and in perpetuity, would that be acceptable to you?
I think so, yes. But as I say, I would prefer to see it as an actual submitted drawing, if that's possible.
Thank you.
Because I've actually got a picture here which may help. That's a photograph from our rear garden showing the roof line of the existing property at the moment. And you can imagine where the new property is going to be.
We can ask the case officer just to display that picture so that everybody can see it.
Okay.
So we
Yep.
can have that
One
possible on the screen.
second. I will just get a copy of that picture. 1 second.
Where do I display it?
I
Don't
will-
worry, you can stay still. We'll,
Okay.
we'll arrange for that to be put on screen, so that's fine.
Is that showing?
Not yet, Mark.
It's on my screen. It's just, I don't know if it's loading on yours.
Possibly as it's a large image. They can
We haven't got your screen, Mark.
I'll stop sharing and then reshare. Technology.
We could just pass that,
Oh,
that paper around, actually.
Yeah, back to paper. It always works, paper.
Yeah.
Still on the second screen, yeah.
Is that still not showing?
No.
No, all we got is your lovely mug.
Oh, okay.
This isn't a CGI. This is
That's
as it exists.
That's Mr. White's house. That's where the new house is going to be.
Right.
With the windows going to be looking out over
Yes.
the hemisphere.
So just
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
so we have on
Oh,
screen.
there we go. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
on the right-hand side, Mr. Wright, that's your house.
That's our property,
It
yes.
looks great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So you've already improved your house
We have indeed,
significantly.
yes.
Yes.
Which was the attraction, I think, of seeing what we've done.
Yes.
Yes, churches.
Yeah.
And the ridge height of the new property is going to give another 900 above the ridge height of that existing one.
And you did yours purely as an extension of the existing property and retained the front section.
Well, we started it up a bit.
That's the way to do it.
Right, any further questions for Mr. Wright? See you then, so thank you very much. Our next speaker is Lynn Palmer, who's the agent for Palmer and Partners Architect. Lynn, the floor is yours. Yes, please sit down.
Yeah.
Yes, you'll have
That's not the presentation we've got. Can you turn the presentation on, Mark? Is that possible? There we go. And the next slide's the first one.
okay, you'll have 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. That's great. Thank you. First of all, I'm speaking on behalf of our client. First of all, Jacqueline Ash, as Mr. Wright mentioned, is the applicant for number 22 Cedar Crescent, to share her circumstances and the design brief that she gave to us. Jacqueline is actually a very active 81-year-old with a large family, including 10 grandchildren and 3 great-grandchildren. Sadly, her husband passed away earlier last year, following a period of time in a home and rehabilitation. So following her loss, Jacqueline has reflected on her future and wanted to maintain her independence and avoid a care home if possible. So she sold her family home and she has purchased 22 Cedar Crescent here. She provided us with a very clear brief, which was to design her a home with ground floor living, prioritising mobility, and include spaces for visiting family and potential live-in carer if required. So this application has been called in today due to concerns raised by Councillor Brotherton that the proposal constitutes overdevelopment and out of keeping with this side of the street and the area. And we'd like to address those concerns with the help of the slides. If we move to the next one, please. Good, thank you. Great care has been taken to ensure the property retains the form of a bungalow, as you can see, and respects the separation of the properties in the street scene. By squaring up the house, as you'll have noticed on the plan, by squaring it up on the plot, the building is pulled away half a metre from Mr. Wright's house, which is number 24, which is next door. The proposal breaks the building down. So this proposal here breaks the building down into like two gables, as you can see, changing it from a gable on the left with a flat roof to two gables. Now, the gable frontages such as these are a strong feature across the estate and character, which is a strong feature and it's replicated across the estate, the development, as it were. The next slide, please. So following good design guidance, the design wraps around the corner and addressing a completely different elevation and different street scene, which we have on Maple Road. The next slide, please. Looking at the front elevation, which is the top left one there, the existing building is outlined in red, as you can see. And as you can see from that front elevation, the eaves height on the left gable, which is adjacent to the neighbours, Mr. Wright, of number 24, is the same height as it currently is. So if you see the red over the top of the grey underneath, the eaves height of this has not been lifted in that location. The ridge height, in fact, for that small gable at the front has been reduced in height by half a metre. It is lower where it addresses the neighbour next door in that instance. So the new gable to the right, which is further away and on the corner of the street, steps back from Cedar Crescent frontage as the property turns the corner, and it allows for a proper gabled frontage along Maple Road. Now, the eaves on this gable have been lifted by just 45 centimetres, as you can see where the flat roof was and the eaves were. It's been lifted by just 45 centimetres, with the highest point of the ridge up at 90 centimetres higher than the original dwelling. And that side is what faces the two-storey properties on Maple Road. The property is designed with sustainability in mind, and it's reaching near passive standards. With a thermal efficient building fabric, an AVHR system, and a heat pump designed in, it should be noted that 50 centimetres of that roof rise is to accommodate sufficient roof insulation and a thicker floor to carry ducting to accommodate the heat recovery system and the ventilation system. Next slide, please. 22 Cedar Crescent, as you can see, addresses two street fleets, as we've been talking about, which are very different. It sits at the end of a row of bungalows on Cedar Crescent, and it fronts onto it fronts onto Maple Road, which are all two-storey, which you can see highlighted in yellow. They're all two-storey properties. The next slide, please. This bungalow is not, this proposal is not replacing a bungalow for a two-storey or even a 1.5-storey, which is a lot of what has been objected to. Whilst we are proposing to utilise the loft space, as it's been done in many instances, across the estate, it remains, the principal bedrooms remain on the ground floor, designed a fully accessible dwelling to accommodate ground floor living. The limited roof space in the loft will be used to accommodate family visitors and potential future guests. As you get next one, please. Significant precedents already been set by a wider development, as you can see, both in extensions and roof loft conversions. Here are just a few examples. So to summarise, as you've heard tonight, we have received support from the planning officer, as well as unanimous support from the Tame Town Council, and there have been no objections from ecology, drainage or highways. This is an application to create a sustainable, comfortable, fully accessible home for our client to ensure she can continue her current active lifestyle and host her wilder family with safe knowledge of her home can accommodate any change in the future.
Thank you very much indeed. Do we have any questions now for William?
Yes.
Rob?
Thanks for your presentation. You heard some discussion around obscure glazing of a particular window. Would that be acceptable to your?
We have already sent a drawing to the planner to say we were happy and responded to David Wright to say we're happy to obscure that window.
Okay.
So
that could be conditioned tonight. And
you can condition that tonight. I mean, normally it would be conditioned. Yes, we've offered to obscure that as part of the condition.
Okay, thank you.
I see no further questions, so thank you very much. Right. You're back to Mark for any questions for the officer.
I believe Councillor Brotherton maybe speak.
Sorry. It's been so silent up to now, David.
It's not that the local members actually got a lot to say, because when I first saw this, I thought, oh, it's not another 3-bedroom house on Chiltern Vale, as they call it. I'm very familiar with this estate, and it's an estate of bungalows with 2-story houses around the outside, and it was designed as that, and certainly has kept that, and it's a low scale development. And there's a lot of concern locally about the loss of bungalows. They are a desirable property, and then the plots here, some of them are quite tight, but other ones are quite generous. And there'll be a lot of attempts to take a generous plot and put a big house on it. You'll get an awful lot of rejection from the neighbours if that happens. I must admit, having seen those presentations, that's not what's proposed here. But when I called it in, that's what I saw. Yeah. And then there was objections, and I've been in close conversation with the objector. And I just thought it was worthwhile coming to the committee for the committee to look at it and iron out all these particular issues. I hope you appreciate having the ability to consider this particular application. I don't have any strong objections to it as it stands now. I did have initially.
Thank you very much, David. Any questions for
any questions?
See none. No. So thank you very much, David, and we'll go back to Mark for questions for him. Oh, Councillor Sadler.
Yeah. So obviously the new plan will be 4 bedrooms. There's 2 bedrooms on the ground floor and 2 on the first floor. I'm a bit concerned about the parking space. It does seem a bit tight for that. And then that the access and egress from to and from site as well being a formed plot. Is that being? But I'm asking you a question I could easily look up in here.
Yes.
No, I'm sorry.
Highways have looked at it, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, that was my question really.
Any other questions?
No, not at the moment.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions for the officer? See none. So we'll look for a motion. Would you like to propose a motion, Councillor Rob?
I propose opposite recommendation.
Thank you very much, Councillor Rob. And
subject to the condition of the obscure glazing of the window that we thank you.
Yes. So we have a seconder for that. So Toby, sorry, you'll say anything there?
Yes, just to say that I think this is a better building, arguably, than the one that's on there at the moment. I believe it is still a bungalow, albeit with some first floor accommodation. I think the heights have been addressed in as sensitive a way as possible. And I do think that the fact that this is going to be a near passive house is something that we should be looking for more of in the future. I think this is a better property than the existing early 60s development, which I don't think was a very good period for building quality. And I think this is an improvement, albeit that is on privacy, and I hope that can be addressed by the opaque glass in that window on a permanent basis. It has to be permanent.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah.
Right, we'd like to open the debate. You wish to say anything, Councillor Sadler?
Yeah, I just want to defend 60s bungalows. I think they have their place, and I think they're. I think I'm a bit conflicted about this because I'm looking at Google Maps, and what you can see is a lot of houses that are all very similar. So it will change the street scene. I'm grateful really that from Mr. Wright that he managed to come to a compromise with the opaque glass, because I think that was obviously the real sticking point. So yeah, on balance, I'm very conflicted, but I think it sounds like there's going to be a good outcome there.
Thank you, Councillor Sadler. Anyone else? Go ahead.
Yes, just to say again, 60s or other, bungalows definitely need protecting. They are a very useful form of housing. You know, the conversion of them to multi-storey houses is regrettable. So yes, this is a good compromise. I don't know, it may even add something to the scene as it sort of is a transition from the bungalows to the two-storey houses on the other side. It could be, and I think with the settling of the opaque glass issue, hopefully this is a good result.
Any further comments? And I see none, so should we go to a vote then?
Chair, do you just
sum up
on some wording?
Oh, yes.
On, the additional conditions. So it would be an 11th condition. And Mark, do come in if you want to refine this further. But I was thinking prior to the first occupation of the new dwelling, that the large roof light annotated to provide a fire escape shall be glazed in obscure glass and thereafter retained as such. That would be my proposal.
Yep, you've said it excellently, Paula. I'll agree with those.
Sounds
just to offer that advice to the
thanks.
Good. Sorry, that's brilliant. Then the case
I think it's all been said. I think the presentation from the architect was very helpful to understand the quality of this build. And I must say, listening to the quality of the build, the passive house standards, the space, etc., I feel quite envious of Mrs. Ash, who I think will have a wonderful time living in this house. I understand that for the neighbours, this is a bigger building in terms of volume and height than what they're used to seeing. But I don't think that it's sufficiently harmful to warrant a refusal. And with the obscure glazed window to protect privacy, I think this passes the tests, and I think it meets all of our policies. And so we have no reason to refuse it. In fact, I think it's really quite attractive. And I wish Mrs. Ash all the best living in it when it gets finished.
Thank you, Councillor Rob. Okay, in that case, without further ado, I think we can go to a vote. All those in favour of this application, raised. I think it looks like they're unanimous. All those voting. And any objections? There's no abstentions. Good. We place approval is then granted. Okay, and that's we have some more business for our meeting, which is I think
just appeals information.
Appeals information. Sure. Paul, do you want to?
Only just to say that the appeals information.
Oh well, yeah, certainly. You know, especially when you don't see it with.
Chair, we haven't ended
You could say that those houses are even though it was even though it was
This is just asked me to hold for 1 minute.
Yeah. I hadn't realised there's a chops up there. An old friend I like Bamsey. This architect was the help of the project.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right, back to the agenda.
Yeah.
When I can find one.
Yeah. But that concludes the consideration of the applications, and we're just on the
agenda item 11, appeal information.
It's right at the end, isn't it? So,
yes.
Page 126.
Here's information on November and December.
Oh.
For the committee's noting.
Appeals data December 2024. Yeah. Thank you, Paul. It's useful. Yeah.
I think hopefully committee find it useful just to see a record of appeals that we received and also decided, particularly where they relate to committee decisions. We might like to note in respect of one of the decisions in December, there's a committee one, an overturn that was dismissed. So
that's land north of Shipley Grove in Chiltern.
I'm actually referring to the case that's on page 129.
On page 129, 42
yeah.
there, were both committee decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the one in Tay relating to flagpoles was a committee overturn, and that was dismissed at appeal. So it's accepted.
Yeah. Well, that particular one, those advertising things we objected to disappeared very quickly. The developer just took them down. They're gone. You know.
After they were fined.
No, I can't quite follow the chronology because after our planning meeting and when we refused it,
it did involve contact from our enforcement team.
They went down. They went very quickly though. Yeah, and they replaced them with some things which were about the right size, about me, what he was. But then they appealed.
Yeah.
As that particular developer does. Yeah. The other one down there, the Chinner Parish Council one, the one in Chinner, that came to us as well before the appeal was lodged. It actually came back for another planning application, and we allowed it. But then they carried on with the appeal. I just can't get your head around that one. Why did they carry on with an appeal for one that actually been allowed? Doesn't make sense. But,
ultimately, the appellant's own decision in respect to that situation. But yeah, so anyway, I think overall, obviously, the majority of the appeals, vast majority, have been dismissed, which is
very good. But on that, if we allow it and then they've still got an appeal pending, is that because they've actually changed their application, so therefore they're seeing if they can still go for version A?
It might be a slightly different scheme. I'm afraid I can't off the top of my head remember all the details in connection with this.
Well, that one's now looked twice. It's down there and it's down at the top of the previous one, which was allowed.
Sometimes
Actually,
no, that one was because they removed the house. Didn't they?
Removed the house.
They went for
that's right.
9 houses instead of 10.
Can I just ask, what was it that prompted the inclusion of this information?
Oh, yes, I think that was a recommendation following our planning and advisory service review. And they felt that members would benefit from seeing more information about appeals. And we looked at the various formats that we could bring that to you and decided that planning committee was an appropriate forum, because obviously you are involved in decision making on approximately 10% of the decisions, and would be particularly interested to see success rate on any committee overturns. So that was a bit of the background.
I know I got all the appeal decisions when they come through. Does everybody get them?
We do. They
all do.
They're interesting and very useful.
They're very useful.
Very 121 on the trot at one point.
There's certainly been a very good success rate in the last 12 months.
And may I just note, Highmore Parish Council, Satwell House, Satwell, landscaping works, including the creation of a new access, creation of a lake and substantial tree planting. That was a committee overturn. It went to PINS and it was rejected by PINS.
That's a third stage, Joe, but I checked yesterday and it's got through at the stage. So the
appeal's live.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
It means the appeal will run. It doesn't mean it's been allowed.
Okay.
But the first hurdle, it was questioned by the planning inspector as to whether it was complete in terms of its information.
Is that the one where they have the hedge turning off that massive hedge?
Massive hedge.
and then that huge driveway right
going across agricultural fields in the AOM.
Interestingly enough, there was an appeal which was in place when the thing came to the committee anyway. Do you remember a big replacement house near Tame?
Yes.
And the inspector actually, though we'd approved it, he basically said we shouldn't have approved it because it's so awful.
Yes, that was a physical, wasn't it?
Yes, and I objected to it strongly, and I'm very sorry the committee approved it. There we go.
That was the one near the old Phoenix Trail. Sorry, the one near Phoenix Trail.
It was in. Yes.
Oh, sorry. I think we need to finish the meeting.
Yes,
right. Yeah, because we did talk.
Edit the meeting.
Yeah. Thank you, Lucy.
Thank you, Bertie. Can you let us know when we're not broadcasting anymore?